All right, today we're going to dig into this really fascinating report that completely flips the script on how leaders should be thinking about AI adoption. These insights, they come from a tech research firm called Virtualization Options LLC, and trust me, they might just change how you see your biggest allies and your biggest critics in any AI rollout.
Okay, be honest for a second. When you hear the phrase AI resistance, what's the first thing that pops into your head? You probably picture someone, stubbornly clinging to the old ways, right? Kinda anti-technology. That's the stereotype. But what we're about to see is that picture's almost always wrong.
And here it is. This is the big, counterintuitive idea right from the report. It says the employees who resist AI, well, they aren't the ones who are checked out. No, they are frequently the most engaged members of the organization. I mean, that one idea alone just turns this whole conversation completely on its head, doesn't it?
So, let's kick things off by tackling what the report calls the AI resistance myth. It's really time we just dismantle this old idea that resistance is nothing more than a problem you have to solve, or even worse, something you can just ignore.
And here's the crucial shift in thinking. Resistance isn't some roadblock, it's information. It's actually incredibly valuable data and is coming straight from the people who know your business processes inside and out. The moment you start seeing it that way, it transforms from this, negative thing into a super critical source of feedback.
Okay, so if resistance is a signal, then what exactly is it telling us? Well, the report breaks it down into a few key types, and knowing the difference, it's absolutely critical, because each one of them needs a totally different response from leadership.
So we see three main forms here. First, there's the passive kind. This is the subtle stuff. People just silently not using the new tool, or maybe skipping the training. Then you've got active resistance, which is way more obvious. These are the folks vocally raising concerns, questioning the data, pointing out every little failure. And finally, there's political resistance. This is more strategic, using official channels to delay things or influence decision makers. A good leader has to know which signal they're getting to have any hope of responding the right way.
All right, now let's get into the specifics of why people are resisting. The report does this really cool thing where it categorizes these concerns by department archetypes. And what it shows is that different teams push back for very different and actually very valid professional reasons.
First up, let's talk about the guardians. Think IT, finance, legal. Look, their main job isn't to innovate at all costs, right? It's to protect the entire organization from risk, from instability, from liability. So when they push back, it's not because they hate new things, it's literally part of their core job. And you can see exactly how this plays out. When IT asks for a ton of security reviews, they're not trying to be difficult, they're trying to prevent a data breach. When finance demands 100% accuracy in audit trails, that's their professional and legal mandate. And legal? Their whole job is to spot the regulatory landmines everyone else might miss. See, it's not obstruction, it's diligence. Okay, next up we have the experts. Now these are your folks in operations and your creative teams. They're the ones with that deep hands-on knowledge of how work actually gets done, and how the brand actually sounds and feels to customers. They're all about protecting quality and what works in the real world.
And what's so interesting here is just how practical their concerns are. Your operations team, they know that real-world processes are messy. They're full of weird edge cases that some oversimplified AI is just going to totally miss. And the creative team, they know that a brand's voice is subtle and can be completely wrecked by generic, soulless content. In both cases, they're defending their craft.
But, beyond all these specific departmental concerns, the report points to something way deeper, something that underlies almost all resistance. And believe it or not, it has almost nothing to do with the AI itself.
Here's the thing. Employees don't react to a new project in a vacuum. They react based on the memory of every other project that came before it. How were the last layoffs handled? Were promises from the last big rollout kept? All that history creates the foundation of trust or distrust that's going to greet any new AI tool you introduce.
So the report identifies the 6 pillars of credibility. I love this analogy they use. Think of it like a trust bank account you have with your employees. Every time you're honest and keep a promise, you make a deposit. But every time you're not transparent or break a promise or seem unfair, you're making a big withdrawal. If that trust account is empty, well, good luck. Resistance to a huge change like AI is pretty much guaranteed, no matter how great the tech is.
So, given everything we've talked about, how do we actually move forward? This is where the report gets super practical. The last section lays out this really clear path from that old-school confrontational mindset to a genuinely collaborative one.
And this comparison just lays it all out, doesn't it? The old way is all about pushing through opposition, seeing resistance as a problem to be crushed. But the new way, it treats that resistance as information, as a resource. The whole goal shifts from just demanding compliance to building shared ownership. And how do you do that? By involving the so-called resistors in the design process right from the very beginning.
Hey, this isn't just some feel-good, theoretical stuff. The report backs this up with some powerful, measurable results when companies actually do this. The numbers are, well, they're pretty staggering.
First off, a 2.5 times higher success rate for the entire AI project. Just let that sink in for a second. By simply listening to the concerns, you dramatically boost the chances that this whole thing will actually succeed, instead of, becoming another expensive failure.
And here's the beautiful paradox. Even though this approach feels slower at the start, because, collaboration takes time, it leads to 40% faster adoption to full usage in the long run. And why is that? It's simple. You're not fighting an uphill battle when you roll it out. Your toughest critics, they've already become your co-creators.
And finally, let's talk about the bottom line. The report found that organizations that genuinely listen and address these concerns see 60% better business outcomes from their AI projects. That information you get from resistance, it directly leads to a better, stronger, and more profitable solution.
So this brings us all the way back to that first question we asked. After seeing all this data, it's really hard to see resistance as just an obstacle anymore, isn't it? When you understand it correctly, it's not a problem at all. It might just be one of the most valuable, hidden assets your organization has for navigating the age of AI.